Medals and Jelly Spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, this. This is the USS Missouri in 1/2000 scale. And this is going to be the subject of our little demonstration of water effects. So, let's get on with it. So yes, this is indeed the legendary USS Missouri, World War II battleship. And this came from the works, as you can see. I actually bought this long time ago. I don't actually remember how long ago I bought this. It was a very long time, and it was £3. And they had a selection of ships, some of which you may see in the future. Some of you have asked me to do more ship content. Pretty sure this is not what you had in mind. That's beside the point. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this to build a small, like, vignette diorama thing, and incorporate some electronics and some water effects. So that's the plan. So let's get this out of the box and have a look at it. It is tiny. It's 1/2000 scale, say 13 centimeters long, 1.5 centimeters wide, and 4 centimeters high. And those are the instructions. Glue required, but not included. Well, that's always the way. So let's hoof this out. And yeah, that's it, basically. Very simple, but then it would be at this scale. But it does actually look quite detailed. Let's take it out and have a look at it. I've never built one of these, so I don't know how well it'll go together, but we'll see. Let's put the box there for a minute. So there's the lower hull, and I quite like what they've done here, and this is going to help us out immensely because we have the lower hull and the upper hull. But because I'm going to display this like at sea, as it were, we don't need this. So what you can do is, like, this actually comes with a base, like a little display stand, and there are holes in the underside of the hull. So you can build it and just plop it on that stand and display it. We're not going to do that. We are going to build the top half of this, so we can put those to one side. And we're going to have this basically firing a broadside. I'll try and remember to put a picture in if I can find one of said ship firing, because they are quite impressive. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a little diorama of this ship firing a huge broadside. And to help with that, I have other things. So I have this base that I 3D printed. And I will try and remember to put this somewhere and upload it so that you guys can see it. But basically the idea is the ship will be sort of like that, off to one side, and then firing. So there'll be a big muzzle blast and lights and things. And because of that, I've also built or printed a lower half of the base. So this top part is where our water effects go on. I'm quite pleased with this base, the way it's come out, because you can use it in several ways. So you can have it this way up, because obviously we're going to be putting stuff in it. But you can also just turn it up the other way and just have a flat base. And then it fits into this other part, into the lower part, like that, you see. So this gives you either a display stand, or, as I've done here, this has holes in it for switches and things, and you can put all your electronics underneath. So kind of a dual purpose thing. I did actually also make some smaller one. What did I do with the smaller one? There it is. So this is a smaller one that I printed. Same idea. And this one doesn't have any holes in it, so that you could either use this for putting your electronics in, or you could actually put this on the front and have it like as a nameplate or something. It's, you know, kind of up to you. But I will have to remember to get these uploaded to Thingiverse or My Mini Factory or Colts or somewhere, or all of them, in fact. So you can download them and print them if you wish. So this is fairly chonky, but this is more designed for like small vignettes, or to be like a hero base for a display figure. I mean, what have I got? Oh, here. So this is one I printed the other day. This is a goblin warlord thing. And so, you know, you could have him like that, and, you know, have it as like the main focus, or whatever you want to do. Or have several smaller figures, or whatever, it's up to you. Anyway, but we weren't using the small one, we're using the big one. So we have that. We have electronics in the form of a battery. We have a switch, charging circuit, as I said. And I also, and I don't know how this is going to work or not, I also have some of these, and I think I might have showed you these before, but these might be a bit long. These are LED noodles, and they're brilliant bits of kit. It's basically a flexible LED. So the way it works is, let me find a battery quickly. So if I plug that in like that, if I've got this the right way around, maybe not. Let's try it the other way around. Oh, there we go. Wow, that's bright. But yes, there you go. You see, so you have a flexible LED. Brilliant bit of kit. So I have 3 of those. Just conveniently, I have to have 3 of those. I'll put this back in the bag for now. That does get warm very quickly. But these, the one issue with these at the moment is I found is they are still quite expensive to buy, but I'm sure the price will come down over time. But basically the idea is to have the ship in the sea firing a broadside and big flash, smoke, water being pushed away, you know, all that kind of stuff. So let's put some of this stuff to one side for a minute because we don't need it yet. And have a look at our ship. This is actually surprisingly detailed, all things considered. But it's also going to be quite awkward to paint. Because like many ships in World War II, it does have a camouflage pattern, which is going to be an absolute nightmare to try and replicate. But I'm thinking what I might do, I might just paint it grey, and just for the sake of, you know, the display, just to make life easier, just do the deck wood and the rest of it just grey. Yeah, because this, the annoying thing of it is, in a way, is apparently from what I've read, the USS Missouri was the only battleship to actually have this kind of colour scheme on it, and the rest of them were just grey. So I'm kind of tempted just to paint it, because obviously it's where it's on display now, it is just painted grey. So I did find some pictures. I'll see if I can put a few of them up to show you what I'm talking about. But the idea is we want to, the main, you know, thrust of the thing, stop laughing at the back, is the guns firing. And I have found some lovely pictures of the Missouri firing a broadside. I'll put one up to give you an idea. So I think what we'll do first is we'll start by assembling the superstructure, and then we'll prime everything. We'll put all the smaller guns on, and then we'll see where we go from there. So let's do that quickly. Right, let's refer to our detailed instructions. Yeah, I think the easiest thing to do is just take all the parts off and go from there. Right, well, after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, I have got it together. This is not a pleasant kit to build. It's very few parts, but all of the parts are tiny. None of them fit together properly, and it's covered in flashing. So it was awful. And on top of that, I've just I just tested it. I put the hull together as well, just for the fun of it. But I just tried it in this in the stand, and it's got a distinct bow to it. Just to show you, if I actually put it on the hull, go on, get on there. You can see there's a the hull is actually straight, but the upper superstructure has a rather distinct bow to it. So that's going to be fun. But I must admit, I'm quite impressed with the level of detail on it, considering the size of it. I mean, you can see like the deck paneling and it's got the little planes and everything. So yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to warm this up with a hairdryer and try and bend it into shape, and then we'll start priming and putting things together. This we'll leave to one side. But yeah, what I want to do is get this bow out of this somehow. I'm not quite sure how. But I think it's just going to be a case of just warming it up and just gently bending it straight, because it's not. But yes, then we'll prime it, and we'll start thinking about putting some paint on this, and also make a start on the base. So just to demonstrate how I'm going to straighten this out, I've just basically taped this onto this block of wood with a coffee stirrer underneath it, and just put a little bit of light pressure on it, just to bow it slightly. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to warm it up with a hairdryer for a minute, and then just leave it and let it cool down, and hopefully that should keep it in this shape, and just hope I haven't overcorrected it, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, I'll hit this with a hairdryer, let it cool down, and hopefully that will take the bow out of it. Right, so it is the next day. I am just waiting for the primer to dry on the ship. So we're going to turn our attention to the base for a minute. I have sprayed the base with matte black, and then put some matte lacquer on it, the normal high coat stuff, just to basically take the shine off it. And what I want to do is I want to put some paint in the bottom of this to make it look more, watery. So what I've got here is some this is De La Roni Graduate Acrylic. This is phthalo blue or something. And I've also got some Liquitex grey. So we're going to try and make a kind of a sea grey. So I'm just going to put in this little pot here. Not a sponsor. It's just, I always keep little plastic pots because they're useful for stuff like this. So let's put some of that in there. And we're going to kind of wing it with this. Oh. And I'll put a bit of grey in there. This is the trouble with these tubes, is you always get a stringy bit. Right, let's mix that up. We might put a touch of green in it as well, I'm not sure yet. Let's see how well this works. Yeah, more grey. I did have a nice blue grey somewhere, but I don't know what I did with it. I must have used it up for something. Leave that when my daughters had it. This is usually the case. It's usually when my paints go missing, it's usually because my daughters had them. But you know what? That's fine. Right, does that look like a kind of a sea grey, or is that still a bit too blue? That might still be a bit blue, actually. I put way too much blue in, that's the trouble. Might do. Is that still a bit blue, do you think? It looks a lot more blue on the camera than it does to the naked eye. This is probably going to want a couple of coats of this. But what basically the idea is, I'm going to paint this on and then pour resin over it. I was just drying off the first coat and I've had an idea. I'm going to add some water to this paint and thin it out a bit, and see if I can just pour it on and just let it go like that. Yeah, let this thin out a bit, and then just pour it on and let it self-level. That's more like it. All right. just spread it out with the brush. Yeah, I think that looks better because it's more of a watery look. Like I say, we're going to put resin over it anyway, but I think it will just help with the overall look of the thing. Gives it that sense of movement, if you like. Right, and then we'll leave that to dry. And it will probably take a while to dry, but once it's dry, we'll put some resin over it. In the meantime, I think we can look at painting the ship. Right, while we're waiting for that paint to dry, we'll start on the ship, and we're going to start with this XF83 Medium Sea Grey 2. I've actually found something that's going to save me a lot of aggravation with this. It turns out, I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but the Missouri was the only one of the Iowa-class battleships that actually was painted in camouflage. But after the war, it was painted flat grey, and which was nice. And there were several instances of the ship taking part in firepower demonstrations after the war, and one of them was in 1986 in Sydney, Australia. And in that, the ship fired a broadside of all 9 16-inch guns plus all of the 5-inch turrets as well. So yes, I'm going to I'm going to use that as my reference, because that will save a lot of aggravation. And obviously we'll paint the turrets too. I'm leaving the turrets off for the time being because I want to see where I need to put wiring and everything first. So we'll leave the turrets off for now. And now we're going to go over the decks with this XS78 wooden deck tan. What I've done is I've thinned it with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol because I don't want it to be too wooden, if it makes sense. I just want to give the a bit of colour variation to the rest of the hull. So I'm just going to go over it very lightly like this. You see? There's no point trying to pick out too much detail because at this scale the detail doesn't really exist. Although I think they've done a pretty good job in terms of detail on this. I mean, obviously there are some issues with with the fit of the thing, but in terms of the actual detail on the model, I think they've done a fairly good job. So this is probably going to take a while, so I'll get this done and then we'll go on from there. What I'm going to do, just so you know, when I've finished this, is I'm going to give the whole thing a coat of gloss varnish, and then we'll apply some judicious washes and panel liners and things like that to pick out some of these highlights or some of the detail. Right, so as I said, after painting that, I gave it a quick spritz of high coat gloss lacquer, and what we're going to do now, and I want to try a little test piece here to see how well this works. I've just got some black panel line accent here, and we're going to try a little bit of it on here and see how this works. Because obviously we can always clean it up afterwards to get rid of the worst of it. But yeah, I think that'll be all right. because obviously we can take off what we don't want when it's dry. This is the bit that concerns me, because what I don't want it to do is start running through the decking, which I think is what it's probably going to do, but if it does, we'll just have to try and tidy it up. See if we can get some on here. I just want to try and pick out some of these details on the deck, because it seems a shame to not be able to see them. Yeah, I think this is working. It's just being very, very careful with it and not going too mad. Like that. But we can come back and take some of that off in a minute. It's because there's too much on the brush, that's the trouble. Yeah, that's more like it. That's the way we want it to go on, just like that. But we can get some of this off. Like that. So I'll go around the rest of this, and then we'll come back and do a bit of tidying up. And while we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to do a couple of other little details. So I'm going to do the planes on the back using this XF50 Field Blue. I don't think this is exactly the right colour for these, but at this size, does it really matter? And we only need to do the tops of them. I mean, they're not very great models. You know, the planes aren't particularly good, but they add a certain watts it to the whole thing, so might as well make the most of them. These aircraft had so much flashing on them, they were awful to clean up, as you can imagine with the size of them. But, you know, they're all right. And then we'll just put a bit of this chainmail on just to do the canopy, and I think I'll do the skids that they take off from as well. And these might look a bit leery at the moment, but once they get some matte varnish on them, they'll it will tone them down. So, right, and I think we can start cleaning up the panel liner now. And for that, we'll just use this. Oh God, if I can get it out of the camera, white spirit, just cheap white spirit. Right, and for this, we just use cotton bud. Just dip it in the white spirit, and then just take a tissue and just blot most of it off. We only want a little tiny bit on there. And then what we do is we just very, very gently just wipe over the top like that, and it just gets rid of excess that we don't want. But you don't want to press when you're doing this. Just literally let the cotton bud just touch the surface. Because if you press too hard, there is a distinct possibility that you will just wipe all the paint off, which is not what you want, not at this stage. Just like that, you see. And if you get any bits where you can't get in with the cotton bud, then you can just use a brush. There we go. So I think what we'll do now is we'll give this a coat of matte varnish, and I think that'll be the ship pretty much done for now anyway. Right, this is dry now. I did something that was possibly not the most brilliant idea because it was taking a long time to dry, so I actually put it on the bed of the 3D printer and heated it to kind of warm it up, and I think I might have overheated it slightly, but it's fine. It's all right. So what we need to do now is put a layer of resin over this. And so I've got, let's just put this to one side for a sec. I've got some resin here. This is from Craft Resin, not a sponsor. This is just a set I got from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. So I have no affiliation with them. It's just they seem to be a decent brand, and I've tried this stuff a few times and it works really well. So we need our scale. Now this actually says to mix by volume, but I mix it by weight because it's easier. So gloves would be a good idea because you don't want to get this stuff on your hands if you can avoid it. It's a little bit chilly here in the workshop today, so I'm hoping this is actually going to cure all right. It should be all right. I'll say the only thing I'm not keen on this, and I think I've mentioned this before, is these bottles are very chonky. So when it comes to actually pouring out the resin, it's quite difficult to get a decent pour, but you know, it is what it is. You just have to be careful. So put the scales on. This is just a plastic cup. Used to have dessert, some kind of dessert in it. And zero that. And not quite sure how much we're going to need here, so it's always best to pour more than you think you'll need, because you can always use the rest in something else. So I'll do 50 grams of each. Oh, stop. Yeah, see, this is the trouble with this bottle, is it's now dripped down the side. So that's the one issue with this set that I found. The resin itself is really good, but I'm not overly thrilled with the bottles. But you know, it's a minor issue. Right now. Pour this up to 100 grams. Now, let's get the scales out of the way. Oh, my son's here. Say hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
What are you after?
I need one of those. And where's the...
What are you... Oh, hang on. Oh!
I don't know, was it knocked down? What, all the way down the bottom there?
buffing? It's raining, you weirdo.
No, it's not. That'll do. This one is charged, right?
It should be, yeah.
Right, cool. Oh,
You seeing if it's heavy enough to be charged?
yes.
Is it lighter if there's no electricity in it?
Yeah, that one.
When you let all the electrons out?
You've got to fill it with the electricity.
Yeah. Oh dear. He was after the buffer to polish his car. Never mind. Right. So what we're also going to do is put some a little bit of dye in it. Although I have to say this dye is, if you'll pardon the expression, dyeing. It's quite old. That's going to be way too much. Right, let's see if we can get this mixed. Now, when you're mixing resin, you want to do it slowly to try and avoid getting air bubbles into it. I'm not going to degas this. This stuff actually works quite well at kind of self-degassing, and plus the fact we're only doing a very thin pour anyway. But mix it slowly and carefully, and make sure that you scrape the sides and the bottom to make sure you get it thoroughly mixed. Because if you do not mix this thoroughly, it won't cure, ever. So make sure you mix it thoroughly. And I always find the simplest trick, if you like, to getting a thorough mix is to either add the dye like this and then just mix it until it's all a uniform colour. But the other thing you'll find is when you start mixing the resin, even if there's no dye in it, it will go cloudy. And if you keep mixing it, eventually it will go clear again. And once it's clear, that usually means it's mixed properly. But this stuff has a cure time of like 24 hours. So it's not like we're in a hurry to get this mixed. I mean, some fast cure resins like cure in a couple of minutes, so you do have to be quick. But with this, you can take, you know, 5-10 minutes mixing it and make sure it's completely mixed thoroughly. So I will get this mixed up and then we will pour it and hope for the best. Right, I did put a little tiny drop of yellow in here as well, just to give it more of a green tint, because it was a bit too blue for my taste. But let's see if we can pour this. Let's see how it goes. Is that, there's some dust in there. Get out. Right. I'll just tip this around and let it get into all the edges. Like that. And then we'll just put it down and leave it to dry. Now there is some resin left over, which is often the case. And the trick when you're doing that is to have another mould to hand, like this one, which is a bunch of packing crates and things. And I'm just going to move that to one side. And then what we do is we pour the rest of it into here. And that way you don't waste any resin. And these things are handy for dioramas and things like that. So what I do is I pour these, let them cure, and then I just pop them out and put them in a little box. and they can just stay until I'm ready to use them. Right, so we will leave all this to cure and come back and see what it looks like tomorrow. Right, so our base is now fully cured, and what we're going to do is mark the position of the ship. So I've got it pretty much where I want it to be, and I've just got this is a dry white pen, and I'm just going to put a mark at the front and at the back, or the bow and the stern, I suppose I should say, so that I know where to put it. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to mark some points under the guns, and you'll see what they're for in a minute. So I'm going to put 2 dots under each gun, quite close to the hull. And what they're going to be for is I'm going to drill some holes for the wires for our LED noodles. So, because they're going to basically be fitted something like, oh, hang on, like that. But we'll figure that out in a minute. What you've got to be careful of with these is they do get very hot. So just keep that in mind if you're using these things, they do get hot. So we can take the ship off for a minute, over there. And what we need to do now is drill some holes in this. And the wire I'm going to use, let me show you quickly. Where's the end of it? Is this stuff here. Now this is single core breadboarding wire. And the nice thing about it is, as the name suggests, it has a single solid core, which means you can bend it and it just stays put. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this, drill an appropriately sized hole through the base, and then I will solder the end of our noodle to the end of the wire, and that will basically hold it in place. So I'll measure this. Where are my calipers? Let's see now. That is 1.2 millimeters. Now that's actually quite handy because this should be a 1.2 millimeter bit, I think. No, that's 1 millimeter. Okay. Right, no worries. Let's get a 1.2 mil bit. This will probably be a lot easier to do on the drill press, but I'll drill one just so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So there we have a hole, and our wire should fit through it. It might be a bit snug, but that's okay, because that's what we want, and that will go through there with a bit of brute force and ignorance. But the idea is, like I said, I will basically drill all these holes out, solder up these all of the noodles, and then put them in place, and then we'll figure out how we're going to cover them all up. But yeah, so yeah, I'll do that, and we'll go on from there. Right, now before we get stuck into the wiring, I want to stick the ship down and start looking at some water effects. So what I do want to do is just get rid of those couple of dots of blue marker off of there, because we don't need those anymore. Because what we can do now is line this up like that. So basically what we want is the holes kind of in line with the edge of the hull and underneath the gun barrels like that. Hopefully you can see that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick the ship down onto this, and I think, to be honest, the best option is probably going to be some super glue. So what we'll do is see if this actually works, because what I'm going to have to do, which is kind of annoying, this has still got a bit of a bow to it, is kind of weight that down a bit. But I'm hoping that if I if I stick it down sufficiently, it'll be all right. So let's get some, this is Gorilla Glue, as you can see, and what we're going to do is just put a few judicious blobs of this around the edge of the hull. And up at the front there. It doesn't matter if this squeezes out a little bit, because we're going to be putting some more stuff on here anyway. So now let's get this back into place, and what we want to try and do is drop this right in place, something like that. And now we're going to hold it and hope that it sticks down. Just talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Right, I think that's got it. Right, we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to start some water effects on here, because I want to give that all time to dry, and we can do the electronics while we're waiting for this to dry. Oh, that's noisy. It's probably someone on their way home from work. Yes, let this dry, then water effects, then electronics. Right, and to create our waves, oh, there's a bit of dust there. We're going to use this Mod Podge matte. So, sorry, gloss, not matte, gloss. And we need this, we need a brush, just a clean, fairly decent sized brush. And also we've got the airbrush plugged in as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to dab some of this on the surface. And you've got to be pretty quick with this, because this stuff dries fast. So what we do is we'll just spoosh this around a bit, like this. Try and get right up to the edges, up to the side of the ship. Like this. And then we take the airbrush and just like that, you see, to get some ripples in it. Now what we also want to do with this, and I need to do this fairly fast, because like I say, this stuff dries quick. The most important thing here is we want to pay attention particularly to the areas underneath the muzzle blasts of the guns, because it's a huge muzzle blast, and what it does is it displaces the water. And that's the kind of effect that we want to get. So let's just get this spread around a bit. Like that. And then get the airbrush again, and what we want to do is kind of move it away from the muzzle blast. Like that, you see. And then the rest of it we can just move around a bit just to give us some ripples on the water. You see? But you can see how quickly that's starting to set up. Like that. And then any bits, we might need to come in and do a few, just move it around a bit, just basically just work at it. But you need to be, like I said, fairly quick, because you can see this is starting to skin over already. Take some of this and put it around this side as well. And again, airbrush. Like that, you see. Let's just get this last little bit done. I say it's not difficult, you just have to be quick. Because the last thing you want to do is have this dry before you've managed to get it where you want it. Right, there we go. So this actually looks pretty cool like this, but it will dry completely clear. And there's a few other bits we're going to do once this is dried, but we'll get to that once it's dried. It shouldn't take too long for this to dry. Right, and while we're waiting for that Mod Podge to dry, we'll start doing some soldering. So I've got the one of the noodles in the clamp here, and I'll just put a bit of soldering paste on there, and we'll get this soldered together hopefully. That's one. Right, let's just make sure that works still. Battery. Put that in there. Yep, that works. Right, so I'll solder the rest of these up, and then we'll move on to the wiring in the base. So what we're going to do first is just solder some wires onto this battery. This is a 13300, where is it? 13300, 3.7 volt, 360 milliamp hour lithium polymer battery. This came out of an electronic device, which will remain nameless because we don't want to get demonetized again. But yes, this basically is a good way of getting batteries for nothing, basically. So if you've got friends who use these devices, I put a video up on TikTok a while ago about how to strip the batteries out of them that you can use for your projects like this. So that's that end. And we'll do the same on this end. It also means you don't end up with all these batteries going into a landfill, which seems like an awful waste. Makes you wonder why they put rechargeable batteries in disposable items, but I suppose it's money. I suppose they're cheaper to buy, I don't know. But anyway, so we'll just solder those on there like that. And then we'll cut these wires down a little bit because they don't need to be that long. Probably about half of that will do. So let's strip the ends of these. We'll do them one at a time because the last thing we want to do is have the ends of these wires touch and short the battery out. Now, actually, on the subject of charging, so this is the charging circuit we're going to use. You've seen me use these before. It's a nice little USB charger, micro USB, but I wanted to show you these. These are some ones I just had delivered. I'm not going to use them today because there's no need, quite frankly, but oh, come on. But these are the same thing, as you can see, but they are USB-C instead of micro USB. So, yeah, exactly the same thing, just slightly more modern. But we'll put those back to one side. But yeah, if you are planning on doing anything like this and you wanted to, you know, use something a little bit more modern, then there you go, you've got the option now. So we'll just fold that over like that. And a bit of solder and paste. People sometimes say to me, why do you always show this every time you do anything when you've done it so many times before? And it's like, well, because this might be the first video of mine that someone's watched. And while yes, it would be just as easy for me to say, go and watch another video, but it's it really depends on, I just think it's nice to be able to, you know, give people the option sort of thing. But anyway, that's beside the point. It's very quick, it only takes a minute, so why not? Oh, come on. Right, you go through there. Like that. And it's also worth just reminding you, it only takes a minute to do this. Do you know what? It actually takes longer to set up the camera than it does to do this. So there you go. And we'll just solder the bottom as well. Just, it's a bit belt and braces, but it just provides an extra level of safety, keeps everything nicely secured. So that's that. And now what we want to do is connect, I think what we'll do, because we've got 3 wires we need to connect. I've actually got an idea of what we can do with this. So I'm going to put a negative on here and a positive, obviously, which goes to the battery, but we'll, to the switch rather, but we'll get to that in a minute. Oh, let's try putting that on the right one before we get too carried away. and make a fool of ourselves, or an even bigger fool of ourselves than we normally do. Speaking of making a fool of myself, I don't know if some of you may not have realised or may not have noticed, but if any of you are into video games, I've actually started a second channel called SteamGeezer Gaming, and it's me basically making a fool of myself in online video games, trying to play against people who actually know what they're doing. So yeah, if you're interested, hop over and have a look. All right, that's that. And we want a positive to go to the switch. It's funny actually, because the way that you really should do this, like properly, would be to put the switch in line to the battery, because that then isolates the battery from the whole thing. The problem with that, and the reason I don't do it, is because what that means is that you then have to have this switched on in order to charge the battery, which I don't really want to have to do. So that's why I put the switch to the device and not in the battery, if that makes sense. But obviously it's up to you how you want to do it. There we go. Right, now let's get our base in. What have I done with that? There it is. Right. Now, I think what we'll do is we'll just get these are double-sided sticky pads. These came from the pound shop, I think. They're not great, but they do for this. So we'll just pop one on the underside of here. Like that. And now this is where it gets tricky, because we need to pop that in there. Without sticking it to the base too soon. There we go, that's that. And now we can trim the end of this wire. And pop that through there, like that. And then solder that on. Like that. And what we'll do is we'll put another sticky pad under the battery so that that doesn't rattle around. Like that. Right. Now we need one more piece of wire to go from the switch to the lights. So pop that through there. Like that. So that's our base done. One thing I will do later is, in fact, we'll do it now. Why not? I'll show you how to get the, because what we've got here, let me get a USB cable. Because if we plug this in, you see we've got charging lights there, but we can't obviously see them from the outside. So what we want to do is get those lights through to the outside, and I'll show you a way to do that. So what I'm going to take is, this is an old bit of clear sprue from a, I can't remember which model it came from, but from something. And what we'll do is we'll just snip off this corner like that. And cut that down to about there. And we'll just measure this, and I think it's about 3mm. It is just over 3mm. Yeah, it's not round. If you look at that, that's 3mm. If I twist it, it's 3.2. But there's an easy way. We'll just sand that down a little bit. So yeah, about 3mm. But what we want to do is take a little drill. We'll start with this small one, and we'll use this to make like a pilot. I think it wants to be about there. And we'll just drill a hole like that. And then we want to enlarge that slightly with a 3mm drill. And now, hopefully, that should fit through that hole with a little bit of brute force and ignorance, like that. And now if we put that in place like that and plug this back in, and you can see that light is now being transferred to the front or to the back of the case. But what I'll do as well, there's another little trick you can do with this, is if you just put a blob of hot glue on there, it helps carry the light better. So we'll do that as well. Just got to wait for the hot glue gun to warm up. Right, so let's just move that out the way a little bit first. And then we put a nice blob of hot glue there, and then swing that around and stick it in it like that. And it's also not a bad idea to just put some hot glue on the side of this and the back, just to help hold it in place. Like that. And now we take our clippers and we clip this off flush. Twang. And now if we plug that in again, It obviously doesn't show up very well at the moment because it's the light's shining into it, but it's believe me, it's more than noticeable enough. So that is that for the base. What we need to do now is go back to the top, to the ship, and carry on with the water effects. Right, as you can see, that Mod Podge is almost dry. It's dry enough for what we're doing. What we're going to do now is we're going to add some further effects using this heavy structure gel. This is Winsor & Newton heavy structure gel. And this stuff is amazing. It's like magic. So let me show you it. It's great stuff. So it's basically like a very thick paste. And the great thing about it is when you put it on, and you can put it on with your fingers, you can put it on with a brush, with a cocktail stick, with whatever you want. It basically stays where you put it. Let me demonstrate. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this to build up the bow wave on the ship. So I'll get some on the brush like this, and we put it in like that. And we can go all down the side if we want to. But what it does is we can just tease it around and it will just stay wherever we put it, you see. It's great, it's absolutely amazing, this stuff. You may recall, long-time viewers will remember I used this stuff on the Queen Elizabeth Battleship build that I did a long time ago. But it's absolutely brilliant for doing things like this. And also, if you're doing like a figure walking through water or something, you want to create splashes around the feet, it's perfect. So just like this, and we just go down the side like that, you see. And you can go down the whole side if you want to, because obviously there'd be, you know, it's a good way of also filling in any little gaps between the ship and the base. And the thing is, it dries clear, the same as the Mod Podge does. So, but the nice thing is while it's wet like this, you can kind of see what it will look like when it's finished. So we go down the side. Like that. And I'll carry on. I'll just do the rest of the side quickly. And then when we get to the back here, we can actually use this to help create the appearance of a wake at the back of the ship. Now, one of the things that's interesting that I read about this ship and all of the Iowa class battleships was apparently they had some kind of, I don't know boats, I don't know anything about ships, but apparently they had something like something shaped on the hull or something to help reduce bow wave and wake. So they actually didn't have much of a wake, surprisingly enough. But that doesn't mean we can't just add a certain something at the back here just to make it look a little bit more boaty. I know I'm going to annoy all of the squids in the audience when I start talking about boats. It's not a boat, it's a ship. And look, it floats on the water, it's a boat, all right? Watching my subscriber count go down. But there you go. So this stuff does take quite a while to dry. I'll tell you that now. It takes quite a while to dry, but it is so worth it because the effect that you get is absolutely amazing. So let me do the rest of this side and then I'll show you what it looks like and how we can work with it. Right, just build this up a little bit at the front. And I hope you can see how that's going, but it basically, as I say, it just stays wherever you put it, so you can create that kind of wave effect. What we'll do as well is just add a few little bits like that just to create like a bow wave. And like I said, I'm not going mad with it because from what I gather, these Iowa class ships really didn't create much in the way of a wake or a bow wave. So, like I said, I don't know a lot about ships, but I can only go by reading the accounts of people who actually do know what they're talking about, or purport to know what they're talking about anyway. And there we go. So, once again, we'll let that dry, and then I'll show you another little trick you can do with it. Right, so it's the next day, and as you can see, that's all now nicely dried, all of our little water effects. And so we can now add a few more little details before we do the wiring. So what I've got here is some Crawford and Black oil paint. This is white, and I'll just squeeze some out onto a bit of cardboard. And what we're going to do is go back over this and basically make it look more like white water again. So we'll just come in here and just do this. And this is going to take a while, but I'll just do some of it first just to give you an idea. And so we just go down the side of the ship where we applied the heavy structure gel and just go over it, like all of the raised bits and wherever there would be white water. So like this. Like that, you see. And what we can also do, and I'll just do a few little bits because I need to be careful with it because I don't want to put my fingers on it. Like some, like out here where there are raised, we can just basically go over some of these and just touch them in a bit and make it look like waves. Like that, you see. But I'll go over the whole thing and do this because it's, as you can see, it's going to take a while. But I'll go over the rest of this. Now you've got an idea of what I'm doing, and we'll come back and see what it looks like. Right, there we go. So just to give you an idea of what I've done, it's basically a case, you saw me putting the paint on it, so it's just apply some like this. And obviously there's a load of different ways you can do this. This is a very quick and easy way that I use, especially at this scale. So once you've got a little bit on there, I just use a bigger brush. This is just an old brush, and just just like dab it on like that, just to spread it around a bit. Then take a nice soft flat brush and just very, very lightly go over it like that. And then go back in with our old brush and just dab it again, just to make sure there's no brush marks in it. There you go. So we will let this dry, and I think the next thing we need to do is start thinking about putting the electronics and the wiring in. That's going to be fun. Right, so we've made some progress. You can see I've added the LED noodle at the back, and now I'm going to add the ones at the front. But I'm just trying to decide whether to put both of them on or just one, because these things are really bright, and I'm just not entirely sure if it's going to need both of them, but we'll see. So I have just run a drill through the holes to clear out any paint or anything that's in the way, and now we're going to try and feed this through. Alright, that's one. There we go, that's got it. Now, pull that down to there. Right. And then what we do is just bend that over. This is why I'm using that solid core wire, because it means I can bend it like this, and it will stay where I put it, like that. And you'll see that's probably a bit too much, which is why I folded this one over. And I think I'm going to do the same thing here, which is awkward to say the least, but it does work. Now, this is just a strand of copper wire. Because the thing is, like I said before, these things do get hot, and so by using this copper wire, it won't you know, melt or burn or anything. There we go. Bend that down a touch more, like that, and we'll put another piece down at the back here. So this copper wire, these are literally just strands of wire that I took from a normal, you know, household cable. Just strip the insulation off and just strip the individual strands out. And they're useful for all kinds of different things, not least of which is tying this up. You can't exactly use a cable tie on this, as nice as that might be. Right, now we can trim these off. And I'll keep those little scraps of wire, because you can use those to make turnbuckles. just test that and make sure it still works. It's always important to test everything as you're going along and make sure you haven't broken anything. There we go. And as you can see, that is very, very bright. So I'm just wondering if we actually need 2 on there or just the 1. You can you see there's like smoke coming off of it? There you go. Right. Now I'm not going to touch that for a minute because that will be very hot. I'll have to think about whether to put the other one or not. But basically the next thing we need to do now is cover these with something. I will probably use cotton wool. But that will be the next thing that we'll do. Right, so we've got all the lights in place now. What I've decided to do, just to try, is instead of putting both the lights in this side, because I think it'd be too much, what I've done is I've basically spaced them out so that the light is in front of both turrets. And you can see here I've also already added some cotton wool here, and I'm now going to do the same on this side. So I've got here a piece of cotton wool, and basically what I'm doing is just kind of sort of teasing it out a little bit, just to make it look a bit more, you know, smoky. Into, you know, we basically want like twice the size of what it's going to be. And then what I'm going to do is just tease it into almost like an oval shape. And I'll show you why in a second. Now, that will roughly do to start us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift these up like so. And again, you don't want to bend these around too much because eventually the wire will snap, which is not what we want. And I'm going to put this underneath. And I've got to be very careful here because this oil paint is still wet. And if I go too mad with it, what I'll do is end up with wiping the paint off of the the resin. So we put that like that, and then we bend these back down, and they will hold it in place. And then we can fold this over and start teasing it into place. So we want to get this sort of around the gun barrels, and then the sides we want to kind of tuck underneath, which is easier said than done in some cases, like that. And I must admit, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so I'm probably making a right dog's breakfast of it, but I think it'll work for what we're doing. Just tuck that underneath like that. What you can also do is use anything you want, like this. This is better sometimes because it doesn't, the cotton wool doesn't catch on it quite so much. Right, I'll just keep working at this until we get it roughly where we want it. That gives you a rough idea anyway. I'm gonna mess around with it a bit more in a minute, but just to give you an idea. And we'll just test this and see what it looks like. That looks quite like an explosion, doesn't it? So let me spend a few minutes kind of getting this into place, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. Right, so you can see I've just put a bit of paper under this just to keep the overspray off of the water as much as possible. But I'm going to start with this X26 clear orange, and we're not going to do a huge amount here. What we just want to do is just give it a little bit of a little touch of colour. it doesn't have to be particularly neat because, you know, obviously it's a fireball. Right, that'll do for that. And now we're going to move on to this XF1 flat black. Right, I think that will do us. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tidy up this cotton wool again, because obviously it's been blown around a bit, and I might actually see if I can get some super glue under it and just stick it down, and then we're going to do some final water effects, and then I think we'll be done with this. Right, and now I've done that, so I've just stuck these down with a bit of PVA actually, but what I'm going to do is just come in and just add some more sort of waves and ripples and things just around the explosions to make it look like the water's being displaced by the blast. And again, we don't need to go nuts with it, but just to give it a certain what's it, as they say. And we'll just do that the same way as we did before. So like that. And then we take our old brush and just kind of blend that a little bit. There we go. Oh, missed a bit. Right, so the last thing we need to do now is sort out the wiring and attach it to the base. Right, so I've just tidied up the wiring underneath here. Oh, hang on, let's turn that over so you can see it. So I've just put a bit of duct tape on just so that these wires can't move, and then I've spliced them together so that we can connect them to the base. And speaking of which, we can now join these wires up. So I'll pop that in there. Try and get under the camera so you can see what I'm doing. I could solder these wires together, but honestly this is easy. And it also means that you can dismantle it in the future if you need to do anything, you know, if anything needs replacing or anything. All right, there we go. So now we can pop this, oh, the other way around on here. And I think we're ready for the grand test. As the flames licked higher. So, yay. There we go. Right, it works. I think it looks pretty good. So I think we are now quite safe to wrap this up. And here is our finished article. I'm quite pleased with that's come out. Hopefully you've all learnt something a little bit about water effects and indeed electronics. So there we go. Good, blimey, that's bright. But yes, there we go. That's our rendition of the USS Missouri firing a full broadside from its 16-inch guns. And also, you know, we've done a little bit of water effects, we've done some electronics, and I think this has come out looking not too bad at all, especially considering the scale of the thing. So yes, hopefully you've enjoyed this little video. It's kind of annoying that the original water effects video I did was lost to posterity, but you know, it is what it is. I did actually have a little bit of footage left over from that I might cobble together into something. You'll have to wait and see. But yes, hopefully you've enjoyed this one. I'd like to thank my top tier patrons, Howard, Amy and Hawaii Clive O, for their continued support, and all of my channel members and patrons and all you lovely people at home. It's very much appreciated. And I will see you all on the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers. Bye.